Hello, beautiful community. We talked about Trump's worst ever social media post. Well, he has trumped it today and produced something that shows signs of narcissistic escalation, disinhibition of genocide, and disinhibition of the use of nuclear weapons. So, let's look at it. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight one of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally come to an end. God bless the great people of Iran. I want to focus more on the political implications of this and say a little bit about this genocidal and a little bit about nuclear disinhibition. But first, we've got to mention narcissistic escalation because it's going to explain what Trump says and what Trump does over the months to come. Now, narcissists look for what we might call positive narcissistic supply or negative narcissistic supply. And when they get a certain amount of it, eventually they need more the next time round. Now, this kind of escalation happens especially with old age, but of course, semi-checked political power, semi-formal political power of the kind that Trump has dramatically escalates all of this. So let's take a banal everyday example of narcissistic escalation in the positive sense of narcissistic supply that's positive. I go to the shop, I come back, and I tell you that everybody in the shop loved me. I need more juice next time. So what do? I go to the shop and I say, they loved me, they let me skip the queue, they took selfies with me, and gave me a round of applause and took a video of me telling them how to be as great a person as I am. Now let's do the more destructive kind of narcissistic supply, even though the first type is also toxic and destructive. But what's specific about the second type of narcissistic supply, it's supply you get from inflicting pain or threatening to inflict pain on the world around you. So imagine that my plumber is fixing my boiler and I'm a narcissist and I get unhappy with the job he's done. And so I tell people in my life, well, my plumber came, he didn't do a great job, I am not going to pay him. But as dramatic as that is, I need more drama next time. My plumber has come back, he has done a job, I'm a narcissist, so I'm not happy with it, and now I'm going to say, I'm going to sue him in his business. And I'm going to dramatize this into poor little me standing up in a way others are not for the, duped and innocent consumer at the mercy of small businesses everywhere in the world. So, more drama. This is what Trump is doing when he's saying this is the most important day, one of the most important days in the history of the world. Let's quickly look at 30-second sketch I've just written out of how this logic of narcissistic personality disorder escalation works. You're frustrated by the world not obeying you. Now, because the world is made up in your mind, and because you don't have a real self, you have a made-up self, it's inexplicable to you how the world creates obstacles for you. You've made up the world. It shouldn't therefore put anything in your way. But it does, and that creates narcissistic injury. The world getting in your way feels like an insult rather than just as life. So you do a kind of counter move, and it's an omnipotent counter move, which is to say you respond not just to the particular bit of the world that obstructed you, but to a wider part of the world or to the whole world. I'm going to lash out at the world for the small and particular thing that happened to me on a Tuesday morning. Because others seeing me lash out at the world will give me narcissistic supply. But because I lash out at the world, I need some kind of moral self-exculpation. And that's going to be that my aggression might not look great, but once properly understood, you'll see that it was necessary or a form of rescue or just an expression of strength. And then I'll take the whole thing and repackage it on a higher dramatic power. It'll all be more vast and grandiose. I'll restage it like that. And so things will suddenly get more historic and more civilizational if I'm a politician, or if I'm just dealing with my plumber, it'll get bigger and sort of become part of some wider narrative about how I'm standing up for duped consumers all over the world. Now, I'll say a little bit more about the importance of understanding this for political commentators now, I'm afraid, and various kinds of experts who are professionally writing or speaking about Trump. But before I do that, let me say a few things about nuclear disinhibition and genocide disinhibition. Now, the speech of the President of the United States is itself a political institution, and the speech is therefore open to multiple interpretations within a certain limit. That's why that speech has to be so intentional. There is absolutely no question that this speech is open to being interpreted as a nuclear threat. He's talking about the destruction of a civilization. It's irrelevant what Trump's going to do. As things stand, Trump is not going to use nuclear weapons in Iran. But that's not the point. Nor is the point whether Trump has in mind the use of nuclear weapons when he writes this. The answer, in fact, is he doesn't have anything specific in mind. The point is to create this dramatic commotion, not to define it. But this is nuclearly disinhibiting language. How is it harmful? Well, just look at how Mr. Putin successfully used nuclear threats, right, to delimit our support for Ukraine. Putin has used these threats effectively. He will continue using these threats in various ways. And it now gets harder to call him out for it, because Trump says things like this. Secondly, this is disinhibiting from the point of view of challenging genocidal rhetoric when it emanates out of the mouths of world leaders, including Putin. Now, I'm going to do a lecture on genocide on the Philosophy channel. We'll talk more about genocide also when we do the longer Israel-Gaza chat. So I won't legislate on that. However, while Trump's post probably is insufficiently particular about linking the destruction of a civilization with the destruction of a particular ethnic or religious group, and therefore it's hard to cast as this directly genocidal rhetoric. The point is that it's close enough that it'll have a disinhibiting effect on the use of genocidal rhetoric as something that we can challenge and be taken seriously when we challenge it. Right? So it's irrelevant what conception of genocide you have. It's irrelevant how that conception relates to the particular thing Trump has said. On any conception of genocide, this is genocidally disinhibiting speech. And that's enormously damaging. And of course, we come back to repeating for ourselves the point that speech in high-powered politics, especially at big moments of historical transformation, is itself action, is itself an historical event. Speech is not just commentary on actions, action itself. That's why it's a basic misunderstanding of how politics works to say, well, this is bad, but it's just words. No, it's not just words, it's action. Now, let me make two takeaways now, taking us back to Trump's narcissism with which we started, but now focusing on expectations we have of our commentariat. I want to say two things. Number one, it's time to call out people who are cultural commentators with a naive sense of politics, who perceived the stasis and crisis of legitimacy that technocratic politics was generating, but then said, let's go for Trump. Or Americans should go for Trump. Yeah, many commentators on this side of the ocean said this. And it's really important that we call them out. It's really important that we challenge them ethically on the evolution of their position. On the channels, we said clearly, many times over, that it would be a catastrophe if Trump wins, and that Trump is likely to win, and that he is likely to win because centrist technocratic politics has failed. But it's important to hold all of these things in mind. It doesn't follow from the fact that centrist technocracy has struggled badly to put itself in a legitimate relationship with the citizens of its country, whatever country you talk about. It doesn't follow from that you need to elect authoritarian destroyers of institutions. So these people need to be challenged more properly. We're far too loose in the way we give everybody a pass as though what they said 3 or 6 months ago doesn't matter. And we also, in connection with this, got to recognize that academic experts and various experts writing for major institutional publications who are still sane-washing Trump, who are still trying to rationalize what Trump is doing in a way that is incompatible with a proper explanation of his deformation, narcissistic deformation of his personality, that these people are effectively at risk of now becoming intellectual entertainers rather than commentators. Now, the second thing I want to say is that it's now time to accept that we need to raise our standards when it comes to explaining Trump. Because it's not been a year, it's not been 2 years, it's been 10 years of Trump in high office. And by now, it's not professionally serious of psychologists or psychiatrists to come out into the public domain and call Trump out for having dementia. Right? It's just not serious. You need the proper triad of factors if you're going to deserve to be taken seriously. Number one is narcissism. And you've got to understand it. It's not good enough to read 3 lines on Wikipedia about narcissism and sort of sellotape that to things you say about Trump in public. You need to begin understanding it. Otherwise, you have to begin silencing yourself as somebody who can grasp Trump's actions and their consequences. Maybe the consequences isn't the right thing to say. Trump's actions and the way they are formed in him. The intent for them is formed in him. Now, the second thing you need to understand on top of the narcissism is the way Trump's neurodiversity, first of all, ADHD traits, autistic traits, less so, but first of all, ADHD traits interact with the narcissism. And then in the third place, you put cognitive decline. You've got to have these 3: narcissism, neurodiversity, cognitive decline. If you don't have the 3, you can't explain what he's doing. And we've got this very paradoxical situation where the people who are best at speaking about Trump are in the minority, and they tend to start from inside. They tend to start from some kind of psychological picture. And that's not bad. It's an improvement on 90% of Trump discourse that sort of just sane-washes him and tries to put some strategy in there that supposedly can be uncovered beneath the sort of froth atop a glass. That's the veneer of his crazy communication. It could just be blown off, and then we've got the real substance beneath. No, the surface is the substance. But even the people who understand that you've got to start with the psychology still don't systematically create for themselves this triad when they commentate. And it's time to therefore raise our standards, because it's been 10 years. If we can't raise our discursive standards in the way we explain Trump, we're not sufficiently effective citizens who are sufficiently maximizing our capacity to be effective citizens in a way that increases our chances in the 2030s of keeping our democracies, which is going to be the period when they're really, really, really at risk. Almost all of you have seen my video on Trump's narcissism, so don't click on it. But for those of you who haven't, my main channel video on how to begin understanding Trump's narcissism is going to be here. Lots of love and talk very soon.